Hi, welcome back to the 2014-15 5E May Watts 5th grade curriculum night virtual presentation. The second video is dedicated to math, science, and social studies. Um, so let's get into it. Mathematics 5th grade. A couple things or a couple slides that I'm going to show you. Um, in terms of what our curriculum is, we follow the Common Core state standards. Um, And we have multiple resources in order to accomplish the goal or goals of all of the standards. You may be familiar with everyday math, and in the past we've used that as a major resource. This year, a lot of classes are, if not cutting down on their use of the everyday math resource, they just are using other resources as well. The goal is for us to follow the standards. Um, and per unit of math, there are different standards uh, in mathematics. Right now, for example, in Unit 1 in my 5th grade accelerated math class, one thing that students have to be able to do is uh, compute numbers, whole numbers and decimals. They need to be able to divide fractions. They need to be able to um, understand place value in 5th grade mathematics. Those are the standards. We have to think about what do we want these students to be able to do, and that's the curriculum that we follow. Um, Many teachers use many different resources. There is no textbook. Um, Depending on your student's teacher, um, you know, you, you get a kind of a slightly different feel or taste of the math class, but really it all comes down to all of us following what those Common Core state standards are for math class. Um, I'm going to go to the next slide here. All of us follow the 8 mathematical practices. I'll briefly go over each one and tell you what it means in our math classes. The first one, and by the way, if you type this in, sorry, if you research this, I should say, um, you can get many websites that get into details about the 8 mathematical practices. Um, the Scholastic website offers a really nice and simple, with pictures, idea of these eight mathematical practices. So the first practice is to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. It just means students are working on difficult and challenging problems that are rigorous, um, and then finishing them. And it doesn't mean that they finish them incorrectly. It doesn't mean that they always finish them correctly, but there's some level of finishing the problems to the best of their ability, and then going on from there. Mathematical practice number 2, reason abstractly and quantitatively. So students show their thinking. They show their thinking with symbols. If they're stuck on something, they break the problem down into pieces. Mathematical practice number 3, construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. Students use math vocabulary. And especially, what I like to do with the kids in my Math Excel class is to prove um, arguments that they have about discoveries they've made about math, or disprove the theories of others with math. Um, this is a really fun part about our 5th grade Math Accelerated class. We try to look for patterns and discover things within a set of work, and then from there we create theories on math and truths and falsehoods, and try to prove them or disprove them. Modeling with mathematics is the 4th practice, and that's using math to solve real world problems. Mathematical practice number 5 is using appropriate tools. This one's neat. We try not to now teach kids all the time of what tool to use, but try to let them um, instead determine themselves based on what they're doing the appropriate tools. Of course, there's guidance in teaching in this. To say that kids are not taught anything is a falsehood. Um, but we do try to encourage them to, understand based on what this is. They should try to discover what kind of tool, compass, ruler, um, tape measure, meter stick, calculator is needed. Attending to precision. The sixth practice, this is about being exact. There's no, well, it's close enough, or, I think I'm kind of in the right area. We want to try to practice exactness, being meticulous, crossing our I's, dotting our T's. The seventh practice is looking for and making use of structure. I referred to this earlier, but I like to put it as discovering truths, creating theories, looking for patterns, and then from that, drawing conclusions. And then look for and express regularity and repeated reasoning is applying your mathematics, making generalizations, being able to solve problem A and then using that knowledge to be able to solve problems B, C, and D, whether they're similar or whether they're different. At a later date, I will provide you and your family with some everyday math online resources. Um, this is a website that you can go to, and from there, there are games that can be played at home, um, material, worksheets, etc., practice quizzes, things like that that you can access from home. And we can provide that to you at a later time. We're still in the process of getting that information. So I want to move to social studies right now. And I know I kind of went through the math pretty quickly. Um, I will be emailing, and you can ask your student's math teacher for this as well, a list of all of our units. Um, and I'd like to get into more detail about math. If I can think of a few more things to say about it, I certainly will, because there's so much to talk about math and how our math class works, um, and how the rest of the math classes work. I'll try to put in another video regarding that um, at another time. Social studies. We study how our nation was colonized, how it grew, and how it became what it is today. Um, we do a lot of the ELA stuff in social studies. I mentioned a lot about argumentative writing, just a lot of writing in general we do in social studies. Last year we did a lot of debating, um, and that was a major part of our argumentative writing. Um, so we'll we'll read a lot as well. Of course, we read a lot of texts that are primary resources, journals, diaries, historical documents, um, and I'll get into more of that when I talk about just how the social studies class operates. But we begin studying early exploration westward of Renaissance explorers. Columbus is one, for example. Um, and then we get into studying Spanish, French, and English colonization of America in the 16 and 1700s. A major focus after studying the colonization of America, and I always like to call it America as a playground. You have the English, the French, and the Spanish all with their certain parts of America. And in the end, of course, England gets all of America, or at least colonizes all of it, and then that leads us to a lot of tension between the colonists and the king and the ruling party in England. And we study the American Revolution. We study its impact on our country today. At the end of the year, towards March and April, we study westward expansion and its emergence, and its impact on our country, and how it allows us as the United States to emerge into an international power. And by the end of the year, we study the Civil War. So this is a slide that's dedicated to just understanding our units and our chapters. I was speaking earlier of how social studies relates to ELA. You can read this slide to kind of get an idea of how that works. One thing I didn't mention earlier was studying and discussing current events. It's a major part of what we do in the classroom within social studies or ELA, or just in the morning. We cover topics, and you can see our current events board in the classroom. Um, One thing, my favorite thing though about social studies is combining the argumentative writing of language arts into it, because it's great to see children take sides on some of these issues. One of the things I remember fondly from last year is kids debating on whether Lewis and Clark had a more positive or negative impact on the United States, or whether Lewis and Clark were more positive than they were negative. So things like that. Um, there was one debate that we did about something about England and America and who was more of a world power, or who was more of a bully. And it was fascinating to see the kids take sides and argue those positions. And that's all done through understanding the craft of writing an argumentative essay, and then the craft of debating it versus an opponent. And that really is some high level stuff. And that, if you think back to the 4 C's that we studied, or that I showed you earlier in the presentation, the 4 C's cut across through all of that, as they do in many of our things. I'm going to end with a little thing on science. Here we have several science units. Maybe several is not the right word. We have several areas that we study within a few units. And here are our science units. Weather is one of them. Within the weather unit, we study water properties, air properties, clouds, and meteorology. We have an electricity unit. We build towards studying static and current electricity by studying atoms and molecules and magnetism. We also study health. We take a close look at one of our body systems, the digestive system, and we also study puberty, and that is done through the field trip to the Robert Crown Health Museum, and with follow-up visits with or from representatives of the museum to our school to talk to the boys and girls about the reproductive system and puberty. We also study space in our universe. A major part of this is the study of the formation and the birth and life and death of stars, understanding how our sun works and the parts of our sun, and we also study briefly constellations. Our last unit is titled Small Life, and we study the microscope, its invention, its impact, and protists, which are single-celled organisms such as Paramecium, amoeba, and euglena. Something to know about science. One thing I always tell the kids, experimenting begins with asking questions. And I try I try my best to model this, and I'm always asking questions. And I want the kids to see me as somebody who asks questions and then tests those questions out. Eventually, the experimentation is put into their hands, but only if they're willing to ask the questions. Um, Traditionally, we've had kids just try experiments, which is great, and they should be doing that. But I'm trying to get kids to conduct their own experiments by asking their own questions. And another thing in science I think that's worth noting, going back and connecting this to the ELA, is we redo a lot of reading texts, tables, graphics, scientific documents, such as literature and science, star maps, and weather reports, for example, are some. This concludes the second video, which detailed some of the curricular content in regards to math, social studies, and science. Certainly I'm planning to put up a few more videos like this. It's on the eve of the curriculum night. I'm not sure how much we'll get through. Pacing it is always tricky with a new curriculum and explaining a lot of new things this year using this slideshow presentation our school district has provided us makes this so tricky to kind of figure out what to take out, what to put in, how much to talk about this and that. But I know that what I've provided you in these two videos certainly is just a very basic overview of more curricular related things. I think some of the things that you're really more curious to hear about include just the daily functioning and operation of our classroom, its environment, my philosophies, things like that, which hopefully on the night itself I can speak about without running out of time, and that I can kind of elaborate on and go into without running out of time. But I'll put up some more videos in regards to some of that stuff at another time. For now, try to enjoy some of this learning content related to our curriculum. All right, have a great day, and thanks for watching. Bye.